Hi, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here. My name is Melanie Matthews. I've been teaching art of all kinds, notably acrylic, drawing, mixed media, for the past 25 years here in Montreal. I know I started when I was 8 years old. No. And I've been doing it for a long time, and it's what I really love to do. It's my passion. So I teach everything from impasto to image transfer. I work with Golden Artist Colors for 22 years, and now I'm back working with Heinz Jordan as their education specialist, and I'm sharing my knowledge, which I love to do all over Canada, which is great. So today I wanted to do and demonstrate and talk about pan pastels. I'm going to give you some tips. I'm going to give you some ideas about how to get started with them yourself. Um, I want to thank Kay and Delta for inviting me here to be with you today. I also want to thank Heinz Jordan for setting up this incredible opportunity to share this knowledge about their huge range of products. Heinz Jordan is a company based in Ontario that imports and distributes. It's a Canadian company that imports and distributes art materials from coast to coast. So I'm really proud to be working with them. So let's jump right into the pan pastel experience. What's so unique and lovely about them? It's a real bridge between drawing and painting. So for people who are interested in kind of getting their hands a little bit dirtier or moving from drawing dry material into wet material, it's a beautiful bridge. It's got a very painterly feel to it. I really love your questions, so I do invite your questions. You can write them in the chat. I will stop from time to time, and Renee is graciously going to be our moderator. It's going to either read questions to me as we go along. Please do. I'm here to, that's my job, is to answer your questions. I also prepared a little step-by-step that I'm going to do at the end, but I wanted to introduce how to use pastel in an artistic way from kind of A to Z. And let's start with, if you would change my camera, Renee, let's go to my hands. I have two cameras at work. And I want to start by talking to you. Because everyone see now, if you put me on spotlight or on speaker, you should be able to see my hands at work. So I just want to point out to you the beautiful tools that are available. These are the ones that are available through Pan Pastel. The company started in 2007, and in 2022 was acquired by Golden, and they now distribute it. But this is their beautiful range of tools that they have to work with. And I wanted to kind of go through them and show, because to me, a big part of this is, and to get that painterly feeling, is to learn how to use the tools in a very fluid kind of way, meaning not just always using it like a pencil, but starting to use your hand in a way that's sort of more brush-like. So if I just go to, so look how these beautiful tools. So this is a pointed tool. So I'm just going to show you how I load up. And look how easily this lets you kind of smudge and blend. Unlike regular pastels, these are super soft. And and look how little it takes. I'm blending, blending, blending. It's sort of like a charcoal, but it's creamier. And so when I talk about the tools and the way I use this, that's the flat part. You can see where it's dirty now under my camera. Uh, but what if I just used it on the edge? So think of these tools as being kind of multi-dimensional. Any one of these tools can be used in all kinds of ways to make all kinds of marks. And I think that's the kind of artistic thing about this. Let me show you these big old these are sponges, and these are specially designed sponges that are more resilient than regular sponges, and they're designed to do bigger application. Like imagine if I wanted to do soft, large, and round applications. Look at this beautiful volume I can create just using this sponge. And I don't know if you're noticing, I'm not digging into this pan pastel, these wonderful little pans. I am just softly tapping. And these are highly pigmented, which means there's a lot of beautiful saturation and color. Do you see how I'm able to, just with a touch? I think that's why I really concentrate on tools, because as much as the pastels are beautiful, really it's the way that you touch and use them, the kind of pressure. And so if you were going to follow along with me and do something like I'm doing, I would encourage you to be super playful and really very, see, I could do this just all day. Look, I'm creating kind of clouds of smoke. Are the colors rated for light fast? I think all the colors in this range are considered light fast. That is an excellent question. So that's that one. And I'm going to just change the shape. Again, these are almost like spatulas that have these wonderful little foamy tips on them. And all of these foamy little tips create different marks. And again, I encourage you to use them in really interesting ways. And I think this is how you get the most kind of creative outcome out of these is by really being playful. I'm just doing all kinds of, and again, it's a very tiny bit of pan pastel I have on here, and varying my touch will give me varying degrees of opacity, of gradation. So it really is the most perfect kind of transition from for me drawing into painting. It's the most painterly drawing product I have ever used, if you know what I mean. So this is the range, starting with these little kind of brushes like this, which are very handy. Again, I just do detail work with these. You know, again, I want you to remark that I don't dig into these. I literally just tap the tool onto the pan pastel and look what it's able to give me. And I'm just going to let the color run out a little bit and show you how I can blend and grade. This is the same. Look how far this is going. So a very little bit of pan pastel goes an awfully long way. Aren't they fantastic? So that's one thing. There's also a lot of chat already in the box. Renee, do you want to read some of those to me while I get ready to show you some blending techniques?
Absolutely. What kind of paper are you using?
That is a fantastic question. I suggested with this in my, because everyone should have received a step-by-step. And in the step-by-step, I'm using just the mixed media paper from Canson. It's a 9 by 12 sketchbook, but I'm going to show you some other surfaces that I use. But for the time being, and to do this, any paper with any kind of tooth, and it's really interesting because the more toothy your paper, the more adherence you get. So playing with the different kind of paper surfaces is really interesting. Everything from watercolor paper to Bristol to vellum is going to, oh, Bristol, as I was saying that, Susan wrote the same thing. Amazing. Everything all give very different effects. I'm even going to show you some image transfer and some collage and how dynamic and diverse it is. So let me, did you have another question?
So, another question would be, should different tips be used for different colors, and are the tips washable?
Tips are washable, and I have a couple of tips. Say that 3 times quickly. And I did this whole work that I have here with the very same point. I did the whole thing with this point right here. Can you see how right now it's looking a little dirty? My tip is that I take a little baby wipe. I don't know if there's another word for a baby wipe, those moist towelettes. Yeah, that's the other word. And I folded it. And when it gets extremely dirty, I can see I've already cleaned it off. I'll just wipe it on the moist towelette. And I have regular Scott towels, as they say in Quebec, paper towels. And I use the paper towels frequently just to unload. So I will use this whole painting that I did here, that I will be demonstrating for you today, was done with one single tool. So I didn't change tools, but I did, almost like a painting, wipe my tool off frequently with a paper towel. That's a long answer for a very short, good question. So yes, and you can wash them. So at the end of a session, what I would do with my dirty tips is put them in a little soapy water, rinse them out well, and reuse them over and over again. So that's the answer to that. I'll take another question while I set up this.
Could this be used as an underpainting on canvas with acrylic?
I prefer to use it as an overpainting. When you wet these, they tend to become almost watercolor-like. They move a lot. I can show you what happens when you wet them. You could, yes, work as a drawing, as an underpainting, absolutely. But I can tell you what I love even more is to use them over the top of my acrylic paintings because it lets me kind of pull out some of the nuance.
Great. Would you like me to
Yeah,
add
keep
another
going.
question there? Okay.
I've got this beautiful, I think this is cobalt, this is ultramarine blue, and I'm tapping it. I'm going to just do a couple of live blending tests. And I'm just going to say one more thing. Everyone, especially if you're just starting out, to spend a little bit of time and kind of teach yourself and play with these things is incredible. It's a real great way. And I teach this to my students all the time to be playful and to try things, even simple things, to get this sort of testing idea going is crucial to your painting practice. So yeah, go ahead. So I'm going to show you. So I just put the three blues down, and this is all I will do to clean up between the colors. Look how I'll just unload on the paper towel, and then I'll go pick up my colors. And you'll see that I'm going to just clean the tool off. You could change tools, but maybe I'm just too lazy for that. So, and I'm going to clean that off. I'm going to do some blending. Sorry, you can go ahead with another question. I'm a long-winded answerer.
All good. Can they be used as an underpainting for oil paintings?
Um, People do, they can be mixed with it, but again, I think it would kind of disappear. But if you want that, you won't keep any of that beautiful, the subtlety. It'll get mixed into the oil. So you could use it. There's no reason not to use it, except that it will not be that visible.
If used on top of acrylic or watercolor, how do you preserve?
That's the million-dollar question at all times. Fixatives are a very, um, there's a lot of contention with what is the best way to fix, because anytime you apply any fixative, it's going to deepen and darken the color, so there's a change. But they do recommend that you fix. But I will say the more textured your surface, the less need there is to fix, because if you're using some of the things like the pastel grounds and some of the other things I'm going to show you, it really the powdered pigment really gets stuck into the particulate, and it's much less likely to come off. The smoother your surface, the less tooth you have, the less adhesion you have. So I have done things also where I've taken in a spray bottle or even in an airbrush, I have airbrushed a high flow medium from Golden over the top. But again, it changes the sheen and it does darken the color. So no matter what you do, there's going to be an affect created by any kind of finishing. There's a reason you create paintings or drawings that you don't like, because they are the perfect surface onto which you can test your finishes. Long-winded answer. Great question. I'm going to start doing some blending. You can ask me another question. Oh, look at these blends. They're phenomenal. So I'm using that same tool and I'm pulling the colors together. Do you want to ask one more, Renee?
Yep. Can you demo Stuffmato using the pan pastels?
I'm afraid Stagmato.
Sfumato.
Oh, fumato, sfumato.
There we go. I was like, I have no idea how to say this.
Tomato. That's a gradation. That's just a beautiful Italian word, like alla prima and imprimatura. Um, it's a beautiful Italian word that talks about sort of what I'm doing now. It's this kind of seamless blend. And this stuff lends itself so beautifully to this seamless blend of sfumato, which is, everything sounds better. Eating on the picnic table or uh, what did I just lost the Italian word for uh anyway,
And
it'll come
then,
back. Alla prima? No, that's painting. Uh I just lost it. Like I blame menopause on that one. So I'm doing sfumato now, which is this kind of seamless blend and gradation that is often found in oil painting, in Conte and pastel drawing. It's this place where one color beautifully transitions to another, or where you have one gradation, like I did that cloud gradation coming down, where you see this beautiful gradation of tonal value or gradation of color. So that's just a little, you can see I did it here with the orange and
Mhm.
purple. I did the orange and blue, and then they did the orange and magenta. And here, look at that beautiful permanent red into the orange, permanent red into the bright yellow green, permanent red into the turquoise. So you can see that how beautiful. So the big benefit is how well this material loves to play with other colors and the way that they blend seamlessly, the sfumato, the beautiful gradation of one tone to another. I also want to talk, because I'm a mixed media person, about all the different surfaces this can be uh, done on. So I have a wooden panel. Anywhere you could put a regular paint, this one here. Also, we come back in that 360-degree thing. You might want to finish them. Um, you might want to spray them. You may want to use a commercial spray varnish like Krylon to fix them in place. And as I said, no matter what kind of spray or finish you have, it is going to affect the overall finish. But the ones that I like the best, so these are like straight off the store shelves, raw canvas. It's got a beautiful tooth. It really holds it. Look at the wood panel, and I did a bit of a gradation here with the wood panel. You could do it directly onto here, but I want to show you what excites me a lot is having a custom surface. What do I mean by that? Well, here you can see that I used golden acrylic ground for pastel as a surface just by itself. I'm going to move this a little bit closer up to the screen so you can see it. And this is a very toothy, particulate matter surface. It can be mixed into paint, and that's what I did here. I mixed it in with the color teal, fluid color, and you can see my streaky brush application there. So I streaked it on, and then I went in with my, I'm going to clean my little brush. You can see how, I don't know if you can see this. Every time I change colors, I'm just going to wipe the excess off. And then I'm just going to show you how I can blend in. Let's use a little bit of yellow and blend in the colors. I did the same thing over here, blend in a little bit. And so the particulate matter of the pastel ground, the little gritty quality, really grabs onto that pan pastel. So again, you're seeing how little, I don't know if you can see, I'm just going to move that over a little bit. So you can see me tap a little bit of color on, then softly, just using the tip in a very soft touch, I'm going to blend that little bit of yellow into the orange that I have, and I'm just do a little yellow. And so I'm mixing colors right on the surface, and it's really holding on. Same thing if I want to, I'm just going to wipe this off a little bit, and I want to put a highlight on. See, I don't know if you can see, I'm tapping into the white, and I'm just going to go in there and kind of smear the white to do like a little point of reflection. And again, what I love about these surfaces that you create yourself is that you can create any colored surface that you like. So if you can't find a beautiful me-taint in the color that you want, well, buying a little pastel ground and tinting it with any acrylic color that you like will work super well. So here, I'm going to add a little white. I'm going to add a little white. And then do you see those little reflection points I just put in? The light, this one needs one too. And so you can see that I created the volume. And in this one, I used the yellow, the orange, the magenta, and a little bit of the purple inside to create the shadows. And say I found the shadow, you'll notice that I'm, between my colors, I'm simply wiping that off. I can blend. I will say that a particulate surface such as this, is a little bit rougher on your tools because it's almost like a sandpaper surface, and you're going to feel it kind of pulling on the pastel and on the tool. So you'll see that I go very gingerly, very lightly uh, on this very rough surface. So that's a pastel gun. I want to show you how to make one of these yourself, and it's quite easy, and it works with any. Um, I've got the material here, and this is one I did earlier, so it's nice and dry right here. If you notice, this is a little tip I have for you too that I use all the time. This is simply a piece of a wax paper, and I use the wax paper to protect, especially when I'm doing a pastel drawing. We talked about fixing until I decide what I'm going to do and how I'm going to fix, if these were going to go under glass or be framed or whatever. This little pastel paper assures that not pastel paper, excuse me, wax paper assures that my pastel stays in place. So look at micaceous iron oxide. Can you see the beautiful glitter and shine to that? Well, not only is it a beautiful, dark, shiny surface, it also is super textured. So it will pick up the pastel in a really gorgeous way. So I'm going to take a little bit of orange, ooh, show you how beautifully, I don't know, I'm into these spheres. I think that's just a nice way to demonstrate the color. Make these touch. Maybe I'll put a little one in the back there. I'm just going to do a little, but I just wanted to show you how opaque these colors can be. And the more surface texture you have, the more opaque the application is. And why is that? It's because the more surface texture, the more pastel can hang on there. And the more pastel is hanging on there, the more coverage it'll give you. So do you see? Oh my gosh, I love this combination of color. Let's throw some red in there just for, oh yes, for good measure. So do you see on the dark how really beautifully these react? And what my point earlier was when we talked about fixing, my point was going to be that the more surface texture you have, the more it holds the powder in place, the more it holds the pastel in place. So I'm doing some kind of apple. I don't know, it's a fruit. We can guess what it is afterwards. But I'm just showing you and I want you to see, and I hope you can see this clearly, how lightly I am tapping on the actual pastel and loading up. And if you notice, I haven't changed the point at all. I'm blending colors and letting everything mix right on the surface. I'm going to pick up some of that red. Same thing over here. What is the black? I just saw that pop up. So I won't go on and on. I just want to show you how gorgeous that is. And working on dark is so beautiful. And I wanted to actually demonstrate how easy it is to do this. So what I have done, I pulled a sheet out of the very same book. So this is just the same sheet of that XL book. And this is the stuff, and I hope you can see it clearly. It's called micaceous iron oxide. And I'm going to prepare a surface. Obviously, this would have to dry. I would let it dry for, at 45 minutes to an hour. And this is all I do to prepare a surface. So this is fluid. I just squeeze some out. I have a soft synthetic paintbrush, and all I'm going to do is brush this out evenly. I won't bore you with, but it's a soft touch and an even application. And this paper is actually solid enough to not buckle too much. You need something with a little bit of heft and weight to it. But you're creating a custom pastel surface. And again, I could tint this with anything I want. I could watercolor on this. I could use colored pencils. So this is a beautiful and diverse surface for your Derwent pencils, for your uh, beautiful pan pastels, oil pastels. And again, the secret ingredient is the particulate matter that's in here. Particulate matter just simply means the gritty stuff. And this is all I would do, and then let that dry. And then what I have here is an ideal pastel surface. So let me put this on the floor and not step on it. Do not step on this. Any questions? I know
Yes.
I'm excited, but I cannot help myself. You have some questions for me, Renee?
Yes. So somebody said, I have pastel mat. Do you have tips for how to use the tools and on a gritty surface?
Sorry, repeat that. Do I have tips for how to use the
A tool on a gritty surface.
um yes, so these two, this is what I just did
Mhm.
here. This is the lighter surface. This is just the pastel
Mm,
ground. And so my tips would be to be gentle, to allow a lot for blending. This is the pastel ground or any kind of gritty ground by itself. I hope you can see it here. And this is the
mhm.
same thing that's tinted in any color. So, and this would work with any product that's kind of gritty, um, and liquid that you can just brush on. If you're working on a paper, I would it only requires a very thin application. You're wasting your product if you're putting it on thick. I also put them on in a very loose way. You saw me just brush it on because I actually think that the brush marks and the texture that the brush marks give can be really beautiful and add to the effect of creating a surface. But remember, and the tip is on these two kind of, and this surface, these three, anything gritty, that it's going to be hard on your tools. So use not too much pressure as you apply it.
Another question was, does pan pastels play well with oil pastels?
Um, I am the mixed media queen, so for me, they all play well together. The question always is fixing, and I usually do not fix, but I make sure that I have them mounted in a way that they will not get any kind of abrasion. Yes, you can mix all that stuff together. Uh, Different materials, water-based, oil-based, they all mix together beautifully. Again, you want to protect these tools because once they get wet, if you're using your soft tools and they get a lot of oil pastel on them, they will lose their kind of fluffy, spongy quality, become kind of greasy, and they will no longer move around. So I would use the materials together, but I think I might use different tools or older tools or not use my best soft tools if I was mixing those two medias together just to preserve and be able to clean because once you get oil pastels onto these sponges, they're very difficult to clean.
Mhm. And then another question was, can you talk about layering colors in pan pastels without blending? Do you use mediums or do you have any other tips?
I do. My tip would be, and I'll do it in the piece that to do that without blending too much. I use opaque colors over transparent colors, and I do a couple of layers. And as you layer up, it completely obliterates the color under the. I will show you when I use that beautiful ultramarine blue over the top. I can almost completely hide the underpainting. So let me go on to, so I want to show, we were just talking about the layering. So this is a watercolor I did with ink tints. Ink tints, once they're dry, they stay in place. But I just want to show you how cool it is to be able to work over watercolor with the pan pastel. So I'm just going to layer up to create interesting texture. Do you see how I'm making texture here out of, I'm just gonna use the tip of this. I'm doing different textures over the top to create movement and texture and play. So this is pan pastel over watercolor. Here's a similar watercolor ink tints and some pencil, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add some more texture over watercolor. I use these in journaling. Again, I am a mixed media person, so I blend a lot of stuff together. That's my MO. That's what I love to do. So look how I can gradate over the top of this. And so I can make it darker in the background and kind of blend it to the foreground. What if I wanted to create a little sky? And I don't know, I'm gonna keep this here so you see how I use the same. Maybe it's just laziness. I just like mixing colors. So maybe I want a little sky up here. So I'm going to add a little bit of this teal blue. So I just want to show you how I can enhance my own little watercolor paintings. I can add color anywhere I want. So, like I said, I mix all kinds of media together, watercolor, markers, you name it. I'm a mixer of media by nature. So I'm just adding some pan pastels over a watercolor. And then what I am really known for, and I teach a lot. I didn't mention that I teach at the Montreal Museum of Fine Art. I teach um, at a college here in the city. So I've been doing that for a long time. And what I'm best known for is mixed media and image transfer. In fact, there is a YouTube video that I did for Golden many years ago called Immediate Image Transfer. So this is an image transfer onto a collage. And I'm just going to show you how cool it is to use the pan pastel. So I'm going to pick up some of the colors of a map underneath, pick up some of the colors into my, so this is a transfer. This is done with fluid matte medium. Let's just add some color here and there. What if we wanted to do something crazy on the lips here? You see how I'm adding? So pan pastels are really versatile. Can you see how I'm subtly just enhancing the colors on here? I'm giving her a little eyeshadow. Why not? Because I can. So the uses for this stuff are incredible. Like, and I feel like, I work with these, and I feel like I've never sort of touched the limits of what's creatively possible. The layering, the subtlety, the nuance, the gradation. These are all words I would use to describe the ability of this material. I'll take more questions now as I do a tidy up.
So, given the pigment is intense, is there a technique to use to get minimal pigment on your surface?
A little more pigment or a little less?
Minimal.
Minimal, right? It's at the beginning when I was mark making, the touch is everything with this. So that the softer my application, meaning the less pressure I put on, the more subtle my application is. The surface will count because the more toothier it is, the more it'll adhere. So if you want a very subtle application, a smooth surface and a light touch. If you want the opposite, it would be the opposite application. Um, a more toothy surface and a sort of more pressure application will give you that. I just wanted to show, I can take another question too.
Mhm. Uh, can you use Cassin medium as a fixative?
Well, no, because to pastel medium, the problem would be in any kind of pastel application um, that it's water base, it's thick. So if I was to kind of smear that on, it would lift away the pastel. So no, but a pastel fixative would work. And like I said, I mentioned Krylon, but there are others that would be sprayed on. So what you want to do over the top of this, if you want to fix them, is you need something that's very liquid, that comes on in a very thin mist. You want nothing that's gloopy or thick that you would pull down, because that act of pulling over would kind of scumble and lift the subtle nuances. So I just wanted to show you why I tape, because look at the clean edges that this gives. Um, and so I'm going to, if we have, uh, I'll answer another question actually while I'm doing this, because I can pull off tape and talk at the same time.
Do you prefer to use pan pastels on raw canvas or would you prepare it with gesso?
That depends. If I wanted to, I'll just show you the difference. The gesso, because it's less textured, is going to give me a total different finish, and uh, a gessoed canvas is white. So look at the difference in color here. So this is the raw canvas side. If I simply flip this over, this is the gessoed. See how white that is? Now look at the difference if I use the exact same colors. Let me just remember what they are. I'm going to clean my brush off, clean my tool off a little bit. And this is simply how I clean that tool off. Look where I am at, because I clean it progressively as I go. It's still pretty clean and pretty light. So I'm going to use I love this red. This is the permanent red. Look at the difference and how much more orange that looks. I don't know if you can see that clearly. It's very orangey. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to give another application. So you can see the undertone much more because of the white. Look how different that looks on that side because the raw canvas is kind of beige. So this is kind of a crisper, more orangey undertone. So that's the gesso side. So it depends what I am going to do. It depends the effect that I want. I mean, I think that the beigeness of a raw canvas lends itself kind of more naturally to a kind of a organic-y looking, softer. So say if I was doing something like a landscape, I might want to work on the raw, and that's the blue. So I use blue. So look, just to make the point, that's the straight out of the tap, straight out of the dish. And then I'm gonna put another coat on to kind of build it up. And then softly, with the change in pressure, I'm drawing it down. So I'm getting a heavier touch, and then as I'm pulling down, a lighter touch. And if I want it to be even softer, I could go back in and kind of tap it off. If I want a more soft effect, more gradated. See how that sort of takes away and blends that out? I'm going to flip this over onto the other side and I'm going to blend. Look how I'm blending that out. So the use of tools, in my mind, this is an applicator and this could be like a blender, meaning I can soften all the lines. I could do the same thing on this side. And this probably won't move around the same way just because the texture of the raw canvas is so intense. It's not going to, so I guess the other part two to that answer would be, um, it depends on how much gradation, because this is just not gradating because it's so much rougher. So look at that gradation versus that gradation. So that's my answer. Raw canvas doesn't move as much, but it holds. This moves a lot more. The color looks a little less rich or deep. Next question, if there is more.
The powder drifts around the studio more with these. What is the toxicity of these, and would you recommend wearing a mask? If there
Um,
are colors that have cobalt, cadmium, etc., do you recommend wearing a mask to prevent these fine particles from being inhaled?
Uh, that's always the $1 million question. That to be safe, wearing a mask. But if you're noticing, you have not seen me blow on anything. I'm not creating unnecessary dust. If it is a concern to you, or if you have been cadmium poisoned before, absolutely you could wear a dust-proof mask. When I asked this question back in the day, they said, I can't say that it's non-toxic was the answer I got, but I use them very carefully. And that means that after every uh, application, I'll wash my hands really well. If I have any kind of fissure, opening, a sore, a cut, I'll wear a Band-Aid to ensure that nothing is coming in touch with my bloodstream. So you should not eat, you should not ingest, you should not absorb. But I get it. There is dust here. And you can see on the surface of my pastels that I've been using, look at those beautiful colors. You can see there's a little bit of granulation on the side. I would never blow on those. I would never get them airborne. So I am cautious. And I would say to anyone who's concerned about toxicity, absolutely Yes, wear a mask if you are concerned about any kind of inhalation. The lungs is a direct line to your bloodstream. So if you are concerned, but all pastels, and not just pan pastels, come with that kind of caveat and risk. They are powdered, they are pigments. Not all pigments are toxic, however. Some of them, barbecuing can be more toxic than, certainly cleaning your bathroom with ammonia is more. So that's why I don't do it. Just kidding, I do. Um, Cleaning your bathroom is more toxic than working with any of these art supplies, to put it in context. Any other questions?
Is it better for 1 to 2 light layers, or can you do many, many layers? Will
Oh,
it
many.
get too thick?
I don't think you can get too thick. I love a heavy hand. Like, look here. I would say the heavy hand is really dependent on the surface that you're working on. So because like the heavier, thicker, more textured surfaces, look, I could really like layer this like crazy. Like I could really build, this will let me, because it's so rich and thick and so textured, almost like sandpaper. I could build and build and build on this thing. Whereas look how thick I was able, look at that. Look how I can really build up. So the thickness or the richness of your application is also dependent on the surface on which you work. So if you want to go kind of these heavy, strokey, very pastel-like surfaces, work on a textured surface. If you want something that's more smooth and less rich looking, work on a less textured surface. I'll take another question because I'm going to set up for my step by step.
Can
That's
Doorland
take me about 30
wax
minutes.
mhm. Can Doorland wax be used as a fixative?
Okay, what kind of wax?
Doorland,
Uh,
Dorland.
I am not familiar with that, to be honest. I don't do encaustic, so I'm not a wax person. I would imagine though, it's all in the application. Anything, as I said, that would be gelatinous, that would have to be pulled on, would have to be would disturb the surface unless it was in a spray, which I doubt the wax is. I mean, if you poured liquid wax and you didn't disturb it, it would probably set everything. But that's the best I can answer that question because I'm not familiar with that particular. Like I said, I come from the world of mixed media and acrylic. I'm not necessarily an encaustic person who knows a lot about wax. Sorry, I can take another question.
And people have been asking, what is that black ground?
What is this beautiful, dark, beautiful thing that this is this stuff here. It is a golden product. It's called Micaceous. Can you see that in the camera, everybody? Micaceous iron oxide. And it is gritty. It is metallic. It is made with iron and mica particles, and look, it's shiny, it's brilliant, it's beautiful. I can't say more things about it. And I showed you how easily it goes on. You don't have to get it in a 16-ounce container. It comes in a little 1-ounce container, and it's part of the iridescent golden line. Remember, I put a piece, it's probably dry now. It's on the floor. Remember I just did a little demo for you a couple of minutes ago? I'm just reaching over. Hope you didn't see the back of my head. This is Micaceous iron oxide. I just did this painting. It's almost dry. And this is exactly what this is here. And again, this is the tape. I'll take the tape off when it's done. I get these nice sharp edges ready to go into a frame, ready to get tacked onto a wall. And this is it. See, look how I'm just going to show you how I did this on a white sheet of paper. How beautifully luscious, and see the shimmer in that? Micaceous iron oxide. It's a beautiful surface for your pan pastel. Because it's so textured, it really allows you to be very thick very sensual with those applications. Like I showed you, look how it just picked up these um, movements of my tool, and it just is so juicy. It's so, look how juicy that is. You see how that goes on? Because it's almost like sandpaper, it just holds and picks up. And I think that there's something really beautiful about working pastels on a dark surface. Don't you think? I can take one more.
Another question would be, color texture. Love this product. I love the color texture like baby powder in the containers, and you can mix before applying to the surface, or is it more like a powder blush type product, more compressed?
It's like it's a creamy compressed pastel. So instead of being in a stick, you have a loose powder that's not too loose. It's kind of got a creamy and it's got a compression. Like I showed you before, I'm not ever digging when I'm working in here. I'm not digging into the pen. I don't know if you've seen me, I'm literally tapping. So do you watch this? I kind of go in and I tap and look at that tap. I'm going to show you my, my surface of my tool. And I'm going to sort of tap and pull. So I'm not digging into the pan, but I'm tapping into the pan. So tap, 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 lift, lift, lift. And then here I go, and I'm gonna smear that on. And just look how far I can go just with the tap. Tap, tap, tap. If you notice, I haven't even cleaned the the tool. I'm just blending one color into the next. Look at those colors. I say they're apples. What do you guys think?
I say apples.
You say apples? Um, okay, so I can take one more and then we'll start on this little step-by-step that I provided. Thank you, Belinda. I agree, apples. They don't have stems yet, but you get the picture, so to speak. So in this step-by-step, I wanted to go through everything I do to use this. And the reason I wanted to give you this sort of step-by-step, it's an introduction or a way to kind of blend colors, to isolate colors, to do an imprimatura, like a background color, and to layer up over. I wanted to also talk to you about using an eraser too to remove, to subtract color where necessary. We didn't talk about correcting. Gosh knows, everyone makes a mistake now and then. And my friendly eraser is in my plate beside me. If I need to erase these things, erase beautifully. So let me start. And I wrote this, I don't know if you can see, it says test your tape. I'm using blue painter's tape. And I love these edges that are blue painter's tape, or getting a clean edge, especially if you're working very sort of thick and rich in color. Um, and tester tape means make sure that when you pull your tape off, that doesn't pull any paper away. And the reason, see, look, this is pulling paper away here, and that's not good. If your tape is too sticky, I wanted to show you this is a tip. After years and years and years of teaching and doing good work and doing bad work, I've learned a couple of things. And one is to test my tape to make it less sticky. I will simply, you can't see me, but and I wish I go onto my pants and I just stick it to my pants. Can you hear that? And unstick it from my pants. And reducing, or just by sticking it onto my pants, I reduce the tack of this tape. So this is a way you can test your tape to make sure you do not pull the paper up off the pad, or to tear up your paper. Just reduce the tape tack by putting it on your pants a couple of times, and it becomes a lot less sticky. So that's one tip. The other tip is to use wax paper between your sheets to keep the pastel from coming off or coming onto the next sheet, sort of holds it in place. So that's an important thing. And the other tip, which I will reiterate, is to use paper towel or wet wipes to keep your tools clean between color and in color transitions. So there are three really simple tips, but it does make the world of difference. So I'm going to get in here and do a very kind of simple, this is the little painting I did, a little pastel painting, very easy. And I did spring flowers because, I need to pull the spring into the East Coast. Come on, Quebec, we can do it. So I'm going to do a very simple kind of flower drawing. And I'm starting with a pencil line. I don't know if you can barely see this. It's a very soft pencil line. I don't want to see it in the end. And I'm just basically outlining the kind of space that I want. So where the leaf would go, where the stems would go in the jar, very simplistic. And I love the softness and the sort of amorphic nature of pan pastels. It's sort of a blurry photograph. There's a kind of softness and delicateness that I really want to preserve. So I'll just show you my drawing. It's very basic. Very, very basic. That's it right here. See how basic that drawing is. It's a little pencil drawing, very soft. I don't want it to be too dark because I don't want to see the pencil when everything is said and done. So same old tool. I may change my paper towel because I've flipped it over 100 times now. I'm unloading it. If I wanted to make it a little bit cleaner, I could go, I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to my wet wipe. I'm removing, and I haven't even turned over. This is how long these tools last too. I haven't even flipped. I could easily take it off and flip it over and use the other side. But like my paintbrushes and my palette, I like sort of a well-worn, I like a brush that's not too clean. I like the muddiness of mixing colors. So I've just, I'm going to take a clean piece of paper towel. I'm going to use that. I'm just going to put it beside my work surface, and now it's pretty clean. So let's start. And I like to, just because I want to break the tension of the white surface, I'm going to start with a very yellowy background. And it can be a little bit of purple, but I'm going to kind of, what I'm doing now is kind of articulating the shape. And can I just say, especially with this media here, the looser, the better. The more free I feel, the better the outcome. So I'm kind of going around the shape. I'm taking, doesn't mean I'm stuck with yellow. I'm going to layer all of this stuff up. Well, this is my kind of underpainting. And in Italian, those great Italian words, imprimatura. So the kind of loose underpainting that's just sort of setting a form. And I'm mixing colors, and I'm using that same one I've used the whole time, the same tool. You can use multiple tools. You can, yeah, one thing I do like is to use this larger one if I want to blend something out. So this becomes like a blender. And in my mind, this is my paintbrush. So once that's in, and I kind of have a rough feeling, I'm gonna uh, rough in a little bit like the ground, maybe make the shadow. So I always think of it as creating kind of the atmosphere of the piece. And so I want this sort of loose, and I think it's a great suggestion too, in general, for art making, is if you can start really loose and kind of let it evolve and not be too hung up on the details right away, the outcome in general is going to be better. And you can tighten it up as you go. But if you start tight, it only leads to more tightness. But if you start loose and really loose and let it evolve and see what you're kind of naturally going to make, and then kind of make it more solid where you want to. So you can leave some areas really loose and let some areas be a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more articulated. So I'm using that purple, and I'm going to just get some of the shadows in. See, I'm kind of drawing out the form. And one thing I like to be able to do is like to go in and figure out the forms after, sort of get the shadows. I'm using this color as kind of the drawing, if you will. So you can see it's kind of coming. You can see that it's a bit of a vase and a flower. And I'm using this purple, this sort of neutral purple and yellow to kind of put all the shapes in. And but the questions we were getting earlier, this kind of speaks to those questions because I can hide and layer over and layer up as much as I want to on these surfaces. Do you want, is there, I see there's a lot of questions in that question box. Can you ask me a couple more while I work on the leaves, Renee?
Absolutely. So, what level of softness would you consider pan pastels in comparison to regular pastels, and what brand would be similar in softness?
Wow. That is a product comparison. I am not great at that. Every kind of pastel brand has their niche, and I haven't done a comparison, but I would say just based on my own personal, these would be sort of similar to Rembrandt or Sennelier, like a very high quality soft pastel, the way that they cover and their pig, the strength of the color. So I would compare these to like a Sennelier or a Rembrandt. But I have to say I don't know them all. That's just the ones that I have personally used.
And can you use pan pastels as an underpin for soft pastels?
Sure, you could. Again, these lend themselves so beautifully for mixed media work. As I said, you could do these under or over. Just know that the more you add sort of moisture, if you're pastel on pastel, it's going to be fabulous. But the more moisture you add, the more these are going to blend out and soften out. There's no binder like there would be with, say, watercolor. So when these get wet, they kind of dissolve. They disappear a little bit.
And then perhaps the biggest knock against pastels is the need for fixative. For me, it is not an issue as using a gritty surface or UArt or other textured paper eliminates the need for fixative as you work on the piece. Also, a final product I put behind non-glare UV protected glasses and so the glass disappears. Finally, the good news is that these specialized glass products are more cheap than they used to be. Comments? So they want your comment on that.
Again, I have to say I'm not an expert in framing, but of course, the best way to protect these kind of artworks is to put them behind glass with a mat. You never want the glass to be in touch, obviously, with the pastel surface. But that would be the ultimate way to, to show them and to exhibit them and sell them. Um, yeah, and the technology of glass and framing has come a long way. But that, that's also an expense and something to think about when you're working. Maybe fixative and other product groups. You know, there's I always say be playful in the way that you handle, and the more textured your surface, the less need there is um for framing.
All right. And more questions can I ask?
Sure, keep going.
So it appears that using pan pastels gives you a softer edge. Can you use soft or medium pastels on top to give a bit more texture or a sharper edge? I think
Yes,
that's
you
a
know what
yes.
I do? That is a great question. You know what I have been using is I've been going in with colored watercolor pencils or colored pencils or pastel pencils and mixing those in. So if you don't like this kind of blurry, soft effect that I have here, you could easily add pencil to this. I could reach over later and grab some pencils, and I could add detail. I mean, I like the soft, almost airbrush kind of quality to this, the softness. But if I wanted something firmer, I could totally do that by adding pencil detail.
And another question is, does the iron oxide come in other colors?
No. So micaceous iron oxide is its own color, but pastel ground, I didn't show you this, but pastel ground, I showed you that I did pastel ground and I put pyrrole red in it. And in this case, you could just use pastel ground and I put teal in it. So you can use a pastel ground, which is like it comes in a jar, like a regular acrylic additive, and it could be tinted to whatever color you want.
And then another one is, could you show what erasing looks like?
Yes, I will show here. Erasing is great. I have nothing but great things to say about the ability to erase. So I get this thing a little bit more firmed up. I don't know if you've been watching me do this, but I'm adding, I went in with this kind of light green and I'm adding shadow into the green by just mixing the blue right in there so I'm making gradations of the green by adding blue to the very light green here. So the color mixing is taking place right on the surface. And here's so I've got all these greens and these blues. You can see my gradation coming off on my paper towel. Now I'm going to go into the flower part, which I love. And to create these kind of flower petals, I want to, this is, the mark making part that I showed you at the beginning. I think that's really vital because I want to give a lot of movement to these petals. I don't want them to be flat. So I'm literally, I don't know if you can see the angle at which my tool is turning, but I'm putting a lot of gesture and movement to try and get a really um, good swivel, a good feeling of movement. Let's add a little bit of yellow to that. And let's go in with some red. Look how, and I'm going to probably come back in. So I'm really loose, and then I'll tighten up the whole thing when I'm good and ready. So I got some flowers in there. And so let's work on the background. So I'm really loose. And the nice thing about working opaquely, so I'm going to work opaque colors, I can clean up all my contours. So I let myself have free, loose rein until it's time to clean the show up. So have a good party, but have a good cleanup after the party. Is that a good analogy? I don't know, but it works for me.
Another question.
Yes.
Uh, could you add acrylic paint color to the pastel ground? So I guess they're asking if you can
Yes,
combine.
that's what I did here. I did that red one. So this is acrylic fluid color. It could be any kind of acrylic added. This is the pastel ground on its own, and this is the pastel ground with a color in it. And you can do any kind of ratio. In this case, I only put a couple of drops of the teal into the pastel ground. And in the red that I just showed you earlier, this is almost half and half. This is half pyrrole red and half pastel ground. And that's the color it gave me. So I could create any color I wanted surface to do these kind of paintings on, these pastel paintings. Okay, so let's get into some of this purpley blue stuff. So this is how I'm going to define my contour. So for the first time, I'm getting into a bit of a darker color. And this is what I mean by contour. So look how I'm going to find my edges by going around and creating some drama in the back. What do I mean by drama? Some contrast. So this lets me take away whatever white I want and shape. So if I want to make the shape of this leaf change, if I want to make the areas of this bloom, and if you notice, I just went in and I tapped on the surface, and now I'm going to kind of sculpt my background. So I started in light and neutral colors, and I always kind of finish up with the darkest and the lightest. So this is going to end here. So I'm creating these petals, so this is sort of my background. Now I had orange, I put purple over the top, and I'm going to show you also to build up. We were talking about opacity. I'm going to use that cobalt blue to build even more opacity. But this is too yellow. So I want to kind of reduce that yellow. Same tool the whole time, same tool. I want this to be a little bit more soft. Let's put a little bit. Again, I'm going to do that same thing where I'm going to sculpt. I'm going to sculpt around. But this time I'm sculpting with a lot less um, product. So it's a softer color. So I've varied the amount of pan pastel I have on my tool, and I'm varying my touch. So lighter touch, little less color. Now I'm just blending because I want to sort of fill everything in. I want to leave a lot less white areas right now. I want everything to feel like it's got a, whoops. And I'm going to show you with this blue. So look when I come in with this beautiful blue over the top, I'm going to make that purple kind of disappear. And I'm blending the blue into the purple. And the purple is giving way to this blue. You see that? So that's two dark colors being blended together. So I'm overlapping, I'm sculpting, I'm blending, going right to the edge. I haven't forgot that erasing thing. That's how I'm going to get the edge of the jar and get some reflections in there. I'm going to do it with a very inconspicuous tool. Any questions? Because I'm just dabbing blue. I bet there's more questions. I see a lot of comments.
So far, you've answered all the questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been about 6 minutes since. Oh, wait, no, now someone. What would you suggest as a basic set of pan pastels and tools?
That is a great question. There are all kinds of different sets, but if it were me, I would start with something that really has a yellow, a red. The magenta is fantastic. This red, an ultramarine blue, something that's kind of similar. You can choose your own colors, a black, a white, and the primary colors are really where it's at because you can see how much I can blend using using just these basic colors. I'm not using a huge range. I'm just blending what I've got here. So primary colors, black and white, and you are good to go. So um, I have here like a warm yellow and a cooler yellow. I have a magenta and a red. So a palette that looks something like this. The only thing I might do is get a green that's a little bit darker than this one. But something like this does the trick as well as black. Have your little sponges become brittle over time? No, mine are. But I soak them in water every once in a while and just give them a good rinse. Um,
And what about a blender for pan pastel? What would you recommend for like a
well,
starter?
these are great blenders. Like I was showing. You mean the color? There is a blending color, but if you're talking about a blending tool, these are great blending tools.
Blender color, they said yes.
Yes, there is something called a blender in the pan pastel line. I am not using it. I do not have it. And a white can be used also to blend, but it tends to opacify your colors. I'm going to show you that little trick I did with the so what is my very let's call this tip number 5. It is the eraser on a pencil. It works so well. Look how I can create that jar edge. I don't know if you're seeing me erase. So if I want to get this jar edge or any kind of highlights that I want on this, So this is the glass reflection on my, look how just the eraser on a pencil does a great job. You can also use a kneaded eraser, but this lets you erase so easily. It is such a dream. So using an eraser to subtract, it's called subtractive technique, works fantastically. And who doesn't need to erase from time to time, right? Right. I am almost finished here. I'm going to hit this with red, my flower, and finish it up. And we're making an amorphic flower. And I'm going to put a little turquoise. So, you know what? We went back to the mark making thing that we talked about. So all this time I've been almost using this kind of 2/3 of the tip of this one tool. But what if I want to use the side of the tool to do a sharper edge? Look how I'm going to load the top of the tool. I'm tapping that side, and then I'm going to draw with the side of the tool. This is how you get detail. We talked about if you don't want that fuzzy, wuzzy looking thing. Someone just
And
wrote, of course you can pre-blend your colors, but because I come from the world of painting, I'm comfortable with kind of layering things directly on there. But you could certainly be using a piece of paper or another surface to mix your colors together outside of the painting surface. Certainly you could do that.
another question is, white is not showing up on top of lighter colors. What can I do?
White is not showing up on lighter colors. Did I understand that properly?
Yes.
Well, you can I think erasing is the way, if you want to get back to, especially if you're using on a white paper, if you want to get back to your pale colors, my suggestion is use that eraser. And I was using a fine eraser to get the detaily stuff. But if I wanted to use just a wider eraser, I could erase uh, in greater surfaces with a bigger eraser. So go back to your white page if you want more highlights or the real depth uh, of color, the real highlight. White is perfect for that. I mean, erasing is perfect for that. I'm almost finished this. I could mess around with this more and more. Let's get this. But this feels so painterly to me. It is such a beautiful kind of connection to painting. And if you're a little intimidated by, paint and the beginning of it, the starting up, the initial what it takes to get going, I think this is a beautiful stepping stone into the world of painting. I'm just going to reach over. Sorry if you see the back of my head, but it's worth it because I just want to reach and get my pencils. So we talked about how we could use, if I wanted to, I could take a pencil and I could, add detail if I want to crisp up any of the edges on this. If I wanted to add any kind of detail, the pencil will lend itself beautifully. So look how nicely I can get in here with pencil and create more detail anywhere I wanted to, whether I want to create a shadow. Can you see that I'm just adding? And as I said, mixed media, that is my thing. That's what I love. So I'm unafraid to mix all kinds of materials together to create interesting effects. I want this green to be better. This kind of loose drawing technique. And back to my eraser to create a little bit of reflection. Um, What to use a white pan pastel for? Oh, well, why don't I just show you? Because often I'll come in at the end and I'll just clean that off a little bit. And if I wanted to add a little bit, so the reflection in the glass jar, look how I can use that white pan pastel to either pick up the kind of lighter areas of this leaf to get the jar to be a little bit more white. I don't know if you can see me tapping in there, using the jar, like I'm blending to make the reflections from the jar. That's why I use the white. It's great for highlights at the end, anywhere where I want to lighten. You saw me here. Look how I use the white on this one to kind of put in the highlights. Remember you saw me do that earlier? So white is great for kind of adding the reflected light on this one. If I wanted to, a little bit of white. Look how that just looks like reflected where the light is hitting the drama on my apples of the white hitting there. Um, I'm just gonna take the tape off and we'll call this one done. And that puts us about 5 minutes from finished. Are there a couple more questions or does anyone want to make some comments?
Uh, there
Yeah.
is one saying, how many colors are there with pan pastels? I think there's over, or like 80?
I believe you are correct. They just added 53 new colors, so they extended the line so that it's huge. And the addition, and I can send you to the Golden website. There are beautiful colors. So say they have a beautiful permanent red. Now there is not just permanent red, but a gradation of 4 different values of the permanent red, so that every color has many variations. So it gives you uh, and you can start just with a basic palette and then kind of expand on your palette. What is so lovely in the Pan Pastel line is they come in these little holders, so that when you're tapping in there, they don't move. I also want to mention that they have beautiful iridescent colors. So they have both metallic kind of silver, golds, bronzes, coppers. I should just show you how gorgeous these is, especially on this black. Let us look at this gorgeous metallic, fabulous. I'm just going to show you how, like, the luminosity in this is outstanding. I'm going to put it, I'm just building up a little bit of layer. So I'm going to bring it to the camera to show you. Look how beautiful these iridescent colors. So that's gold, iridescent gold. And look at the gorgeousness of that shimmer. So you've got the shimmer of the background and the shimmer of the light over the top. And yes, I do online courses. Since COVID, before I was really had no experience. But the great thing about COVID is it taught us how to pivot onto working on Zoom. I'm just going to show right here. I'm just that was a little too rough, so I'm using a clean tool just to blend my edges a little bit. And I feel like I need to put a stem in there. And I think we're about done. Um, I hope everyone enjoyed that. I hope it was interesting and that you got some important information you could use and apply. You can follow this step by step or not. It was designed just to kind of be a guide into how to blend and apply color in a playful and loose way, and to find your way into personal creativity. We can put my face back, Renee, if we could, because I'm just going to say thank you. Yeah, I would just want to say again, thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Lisa. I think it was thanks so much. I'm inspired. Oh, that's all I ever want, is to inspire people to be creative and to use their creativity and find a way of expressing themselves. I think that's what makes my job so exciting and fabulous. So I want to thank everybody. Thank Renee for hosting and being the moderator. She did a fantastic job. I so appreciate it. And I had a great time. So thank you very much.
Melanie, we had a fun question.
Yeah,
Somebody wants to know if you teach courses or if you have online courses.
I do. I run a really cool, and I'm in my 20th session. It's called Art Lab Chez Vous. We have people from the States, from Mexico, from Europe, and so I teach those on a Friday and Sunday, and I've been doing it since COVID started, so for 5 years. It's called Art Lab Review. If you want to see what I do, you can go either onto my Instagram page or onto Facebook and or send me an email, mm.artguide@gmail, and I can send you all the information. We have people from everywhere, so it's really cool.